All right, y'all. Why work so hard to fit in when you are called to be set apart? Go ahead and put that up, Saeed. That next picture. Why work so hard to fit in when you are called to be set apart? All right, that's what we've been talking about this month. Yeah, why work so hard to fit in when you're called to be set? I love this picture, right? Because if y'all see Star Wars, you know all the stormtroopers, they're white. Well, not all of them. There's some red ones and whatnot like that. But in this specific picture, I love it because he's not like everybody else. He's completely different. He's got a different color. He's even got a boombox, all that sort of stuff. I love this picture because it models and explains exactly what we've been trying to talk about this month, what we've been trying to get to y'all. Why work so hard to fit in when you are called to be set apart? All right, and Pastor Tony Evans says it like this. He says it's pretty easy to spot a Christian who looks the part, but not as easy to spot one who lives the part. And there's so many young people today, Christians in general today, who struggle with this life of being set apart for God. Understand, some teenagers, that God has created you and He has called you to be completely different. And here's the thing, He has you like that for a reason. And it's to make a difference in the world you live in. It's to make a difference in your family, make a difference in your school, at your job, wherever you are in the locker room. God has called you to be set apart so you can make a difference in your world and in this world today. All right? That's why He's called and created you to be set apart. Okay, now listen, I get it. It's why I work so hard to fit in, because I dealt with that as a teenager. You've heard a few of my stories the past couple of weeks where I worked really hard trying to fit in with my peers and my friends. All right? I would do things that were illegal, things that I knew weren't right, just so that my friends would accept me, okay? But I got good news for everybody in here. You don't have to work hard to fit in no more. Because the day you gave your life to Jesus, you were set apart for God. You got to love that. The day you gave your life to Jesus, trying to fit in, you don't have to do it no more, because God created you uniquely and special and created you and called you to be set apart for Him. All right? Now, here's what that looks like. All right? Here's what that looks like. Now, I know I've been using the chips past couple of weeks, but I wanted to change it up. So here's a whole bunch of ping pong balls. All right? All these white ones represent all the people who don't believe in Jesus. Okay? These white ping pongs represent the people who don't believe in Jesus. They don't believe in God. They're not Christians. This bowl represents the world. Okay, so as you can see in the bowl, there's a bunch of white ping pong balls that represent people who don't believe in Jesus. And that's what this looks like, okay? Now check this out. Before you gave your life to Christ, this was you. Just like everybody else, okay? Just like everybody else. But the day you gave your life to Jesus, you went from this to this. All right? You are a light in this world. You're a city on a hill. Jesus said you are the salt of the earth. You are different. You are completely set apart from everybody else. So if I was to put this in here, Anna, you can find which one it is pretty easily, right? Amrish, you can find it pretty. Eli, you can find it pretty easily. Everybody in here, if I was to show you this, you'd be like, oh yeah, it's that one. And here's the thing. You are in this world, but you are not of this world. Okay? That's what Jesus talked about in actually John chapter 7. He talked about how we are in the world, but we're not of the world. In other words, we're not like everybody else. We're different. Okay? So guess what? That means in your school, you're different from everybody else. You talk different. You live different. You act different. You respect authority, unlike your friends who talk back to teachers, coaches, principals, all that sort of stuff, right? You act different at home. You're not like all your friends who disrespect mom and dad, who disrespect their guardians, who disrespect their family members. You're the type of person who respects your family because you are different in this world. Okay? At your job, in the locker room, you may be in the same location as all these people, but you're different. Trust me. You are completely different. The day you gave your life to Christ, this happened to you. You were changed to a completely different person. And guess what? You are in this world because there's so many people who need Jesus like you have Him. All right? There's so many people who aren't like this. And God has put you in this world to lead people to know who Jesus is, okay? Now, check this out. God has set us apart for something much bigger. The reality is this. We are set apart from the world to make a change in this world. Now, here's the truth. What change can be made when Christians act like the world? What change can be made when Christians behave like the world? And what change can be made when Christians conform to the world? In other words, when they try to be similar in behavior and they try to live to the standards of the world. What change is possible? There is no change possible because you're acting just like everybody else. Okay? You claim to be a Christian, but you cuss like everybody else. So guess what? Your friends ain't ever going to take this Jesus person seriously because you don't. Right? They're never going to take him seriously because you don't. Right? And so here's the thing. What change can we honestly make in this world if we're choosing to live the way the world lives, conform to the ways of the world? There is not going to be a change. And I need you to understand something. God has set you apart for something bigger than what you think. He has set you apart from this world to make a change in this world. Paul wrote this in Romans chapter 12, verse 2. He said, don't copy the behaviors and customs of this world. I love this. He said, but let God transform you into a new person by changing the way you think. Then you will learn to know God's will for you, which is good and pleasing and perfect. I love what the Bible, what it starts at. It says, don't copy the behavior and customs of this world. What are the behaviors of this world? Well, we just talked about a few of them. Okay? Rebelliousness. Okay? To rebel the Bible says rebelliousness is like an act of witchcraft. That's how the Bible defines it, okay? But there's so much rebelliousness, hatefulness in our world, greed and envy. That's the ways of the world. And the Bible says, hey, listen, don't copy that. Don't be like everybody else in this world. You're different. Remember, as Christians, you've been set apart. And he says this. And one translation says, don't copy, don't conform to the ways of this world. And here's what that looks like. Remember, when you gave your life to Jesus, this was you. And you were put in this world, okay, to make a difference, to lead people to Jesus like you know Jesus. But you know what's sad is that there's a lot of people who conform to the ways of the world. In other words, this is supposed to be them, but they want to try so hard to be just like everybody else in the world. See, if you look very closely, this was originally spray painted this color. All right? And I didn't do it in here in person because the spray paint smell would have been awful, trust me. Because I did it in here earlier and I got high for a second. No, I'm just playing, I did it. But it was strong, so that's why I did it ahead of time. But listen, this ping pong, was this color. But here's the thing, what I wanted to understand, I went back and I spray painted it white to try to conform it to this, okay? I went back and spray painted it white. And here's the thing, I tried as hard as I could, but this ping pong ball, to me, it's not as clear as this, and it's not as clear as this. You can't even tell what this is. It's like, I don't know, I think it's yellow, white, I don't know, it's just, it's odd, right? Here's the thing, so many people, they want to conform to the ways of the world. And the reality is, God told us, hey, don't copy the behaviors of this world. Don't conform like everybody else in this world. You are different, guys. You're different. You're set apart for God, okay? You are set apart for God, okay? Listen, we are called to be set apart from the world and not conform to it, so we can make a change and a difference in this world, all right? 1 Corinthians chapter 4, verse 10 says this in the Message translation. 1 Corinthians chapter 4, verse 10 says this. It says, we are the Messiah's misfits. Check that out. We are the Messiah's misfits. Now, a lot of you weren't in this youth ministry when the youth ministry used to be called Misfit Movement. All right? It was at one point called Misfit Movement. Okay? And this is where we got that from. The Bible says we are the Messiah's misfits. And here's what a misfit is. A misfit is someone who is uncomfortable with what's going on around them, okay? But here's the difference. They do something about it. So listen, for example, maybe you are uncomfortable with your friends at school who are getting pregnant. Maybe you're uncomfortable with your friends at school who are doing drugs. Maybe you're uncomfortable with your friends at school who have suicidal thoughts and cut themselves. Maybe you see things that, man, that makes me uncomfortable. But here's the thing. As the Messiah's misfit, it's not enough just to be uncomfortable. You got to be willing to do something about it as well. All right? You got to be willing to do something about it. And here's the thing. That's why God has set you apart, okay, in this world. So that you can make a difference in the people and the lives around you, okay? That's why he has set you apart. You are a misfit. You are someone who sees something and notices something that is not supposed to be right. But guess what? You do something about it, okay? Because here's the thing. Teenage suicide, it makes me uncomfortable. All right? But here's the thing. If I just sit on my hands and I just like, it's just the way of the world, I'm not making a difference. You see what I'm saying? The reality is God has called us to make a difference. Okay? To be the salt of the earth, to be the light to be a light in this world, okay? I'll close with this, all right? People ask me a lot of youth pastors or even younger pastors ask me this. They're always like, Kerry, what's the hardest thing you've ever done in ministry? What's the hardest thing you've ever done as a pastor, Kerry? Is it like working with teenagers? Is it working with parents? Is it lock-ins? Is it trips? What's the most difficult thing, Kerry, you've done as a pastor in ministry, as a youth pastor? My answer is always the same. The most difficult thing for me that I've ever done as a pastor is bury teenagers. And I've had to do it twice in my life as a pastor. The very first time I did it, I did a funeral for a 13-year-old teenage boy. 13 years old. Who in here is 13? 13 years old. Close. 13 years old. 13-year-old kid. He was out running around one night acting silly with his friends. He snuck out and one of these ranching places where they have those big old like steers and cows and bulls that are statues with the big old horns. It was pitch dark and he didn't see, and he ran straight into it and it pierced him straight through his chest, and he died. I'll never forget when we got the call. They were looking for a place to do the funeral, and they were looking for someone to do the funeral. And I'll be honest with you, I'd never done a funeral before. That was my very first one I ever did. But I'll never forget, I stood over that casket and I saw that young man, and I ministered the word. And I'll never forget, I looked at the program and I was talking to his family and some of the kids who knew him, and they were like, yeah, you know, he was a really great guy, this, that, whatever. He was super nice. And I was like, well, where did he live? And you know what they said? They said, man, he just lived down the street from the church, this church. And I'm not going to lie to you, man, that crushed me. Because he lived right down the street, and I didn't even know who he was. I had no idea who the kid was. And I'll never forget, from that moment on, I made a decision. All right? It wasn't that youth ministry wasn't important to me before. It wasn't that being a pastor wasn't important to me before. But from that moment on, I said, you know what? Never again. I was like, listen, if I have to bury another teenager again, I'm going to know that kid. I'm going to know who they are, and at least I'm going to know that they knew who Jesus is and they accepted Jesus into their life. You know what I'm saying? And here's the thing. There are people in your world who are dying because they don't know Jesus. And the Bible is very clear that when the day comes when we depart from this world, whether it's through death or when Jesus comes back to rapture his church, the people who don't believe in Jesus and don't have a relationship with him will be separated from heaven. All right? And the reality is those people will end up in hell. And we have family and friends who are going that route. And here's my question. What are you willing to do about it? What are you willing to do? And here's the thing. You got to remember, God has called you to be set apart to make a difference in our world. Okay? God has called you to be set apart to make a difference in our world, to make a difference in your school, to make a difference at your job, to make a difference in your family. So, well, Carrie, how do I do that? Do I just stand on top of the lunch table and start preaching like crazy? That's not what I'm telling you to do. But what I am telling you to do is to live differently. Remember what I said in the beginning? Pastor Tony Evans said it's pretty easy to spot a Christian who looks the part, but not as easy to spot one who lives the part. Live it out every single day, guys. Live it out every single day. Titus 1:16, one of my favorite verses in the Bible, says this. It says, many people claim they know God, but they deny him by the way that they live. All right? So I encourage you to remember you are set apart for something much greater than what you even think, what you may even know. You are set apart by God to make a difference in this world. Okay? And the best way to do that is to live out what you believe. Okay? Here's the thing, and I'll finish with this. God isn't looking to use the people who look the part. See, you may think, well, I don't look like a pastor. I don't wear the suit. Listen, I ain't worn a suit and tie in years. All right, if you see me preaching out there, this is how I dress. All right, I said, say like this is me, 24/7. Here's what I love. God isn't looking to use people who look the part. God is looking to use people who have the right heart. That's what he's looking for. And here's the thing. When you are set apart for God, you are here to make a difference. And I want you all to make a difference. So tomorrow when you go to school, understand that you're different. You're not like everybody else. Not in an arrogant or cocky way or conceited way. But guess what? You are a child of God. You are a royal priesthood. You are different. And you've been set apart to make a difference in your school, in your world, in your family, or wherever it is that you are, okay? And the best way to do that is live out what you believe. Act differently, talk differently, behave differently, okay? Because here's the thing. If you don't take Jesus seriously, why would your friends or family take Jesus seriously? All right? Remember that. You're set apart to make a difference in this world. Let's pray.